a friend of mine who was also a white Jewish University of Chicago grad, and he said that he was working at a newspaper called the Chicago Defender and was leaving to come back to Pennsylvania, where he was from, and asked if I wanted him to recommend me for the job. I said, sure. I didn't know anything about the Chicago Defender. I asked him at first if it was a communist newspaper, and if he'd said yes, I probably would have been excited. But then he said it was an African-American owned newspaper. That, frankly, did not register to me as something significant. I thought that we lived in a post-racial era back then, and some newspapers were going to be owned by white people and some were going to be owned by black people. So this one just happened to be owned by an African-American. But when I got to the newspaper and saw the historic archives that were in a glass case in the lobby, I saw the portrait of Robert Abbott, the founder of the newspaper, was dressed in kind of 1920s garb, looking down on me, and I saw his words inscribed on the floor. I knew that I was somewhere different and somewhere special. And the time that I spent at the Defender, initially I went there thinking like, oh, it'll be like, I'll do this for a little while and it'll help me build up some stories that I can use for fiction. But I really just kept discovering things that shocked me and surprised me and intrigued me, you know, and particularly around issues of race, I really came to understand that we were not where I thought we were as a country. That on so many points, everything from criminal justice, which I think is probably well understood as a race issue today, to environmental issues, to political issues. I saw race at play in all of these. And it shocked me and also transformed me. It made me into a very different person in terms of my orientation to the world and in terms of what I thought of American history and how I understood my own place in the country. At first I thought it would kind of be novel to tell the story through my perspective, but I realized very soon that that just wasn't enough, you know, that I didn't have enough of the history myself in my own experience at the Defender. I didn't know enough about the amazing things the Defender had done. I knew that the Defender had started the Great Migration. I knew that Robert Abbott had helped guide, and the Defender staff had helped guide African Americans from the Republican to the Democratic Party. I knew that the Defender was a hugely important institution for focusing the electoral power of African Americans to help elect mayors and congressmen and presidents. I'd seen all that myself working at the newspaper, but I needed to tell that story to everyone else because, how do I say this, that everything that I could write down about my own experience still wasn't enough to give the reader the sense of what it felt to really be there. To, you know, it was back then we could smoke in the newsroom, you know, so to smell that smoke, to see the way the room looked, to experience what it was like to be in the room with these legends of the black press, legends of journalism, really. The only way to really do that, I realized, was to go back to the beginning and tell the whole story and understand the whole story myself, do the actual research that was necessary. It took forever. It took 6 years, and it was 6 years of very intense work. It wasn't a casual effort at all. But I am happy with the result, and I'm especially happy people, you know, I talked to other authors who understand this, that, you know, the writing is good, but I'm especially happy with the footnotes. You know, I love the feel of the newspaper, the paper, the smell of the ink, you know, the whole presentation. I find it very rich and powerful. But it's not fast enough. I can't wait 45 minutes to get the news from television or radio, let alone 4 or 5 hours or more until the newspaper comes out. We're in a different moment where information is available on almost an instantaneous basis, and people come to expect that now. How does the newspaper adapt to that? I'm not sure. Perhaps the newspaper will remain as a format for more contemplative, more commentary type of oriented, more analysis, things that don't require time. But I don't really think that we should romanticize what was essentially a utilitarian art form, right? The newspaper is certainly art. Arranging things on a page is beautiful. It can be beautiful as well as useful. But it had a purpose, and the purpose was to get the news out to people.